Hello aspirants, welcome to our channel UPSC at Ease. Today we are going to start the polity lecture from this video. We are going to learn about historical background chapter from part 1 constitutional framework. Every day we will see a quote which is really motivating. So today the quote is believe you can and you are halfway there. It was said by Theodore Roosevelt. It's an amazing quote, right? Now we get into the lecture. Historical background has an introduction part of about 2 paragraphs, but those 2 paragraphs has lot more than just an introduction. It has 2 major events from the history. One is Battle of Buxar and another one is Revolt of 1857. We will look after those 2 parts briefly in this chapter. British came to India as a traders in the year of 1600 with a grant from Queen Elizabeth I. Why the grant was given? Because we already had a Dutch people doing spice trade in Indonesian region, and to break their monopoly, the British company entered our country and they set their foot on Bengal. They then gradually developed their companies in Madras and Bombay also. As you know, British came to India as a traders. They began to control our territory from 1765 because during that year we lost the Battle of Buxar to the British officials. Since then till independence, they made many rules, procedures, charter acts, council acts, Government of India acts to look after the administration of India. Why we need to read those acts and regulations of the British in this chapter? It is very much important because our constitution has been made by taking some reference from all these acts mentioned in this chapter, which was once made by the British to control India. Now we use those charter acts, regulations for the betterment of the administrations for the people of India. So it is really important to read this chapter. Only from these acts and regulations we could able to understand how our constitution has been framed. When it comes to trade, it was Jahangir who first gave the permission to the British to the Captain William Hawkins to open a factory at Surat in 1613. After him, it was Aurangzeb who issues a Farman, which is an official order for the East India Company, which says about its right to trade. It's a right for the duty-free trade. Later on, the East India Company began to misuse these concessions that were given to them. The concessions are the trading passes, but many officials use these trading passes for the private affairs and begin to accumulate more and more wealth. They also begin to give some of their monetary gains to the rulers of India, and in return they ask a favor to treat the regional traders or Indian traders differently than the British traders. They ask the king to reduce the trading rights of the Indian traders. The East India Company used the disunity among the Indian rulers and weak leadership for the favor of their company. The rampant misuse of East Indian officials of the trade privileges annoyed Siraj-ud-Dawla. Who is Siraj-ud-Dawla? Siraj-ud-Dawla was a Nawab of Bengal. He opposed the British and the Battle of Plassey begins in 1757. It was a battle between Robert Clive from the British part and Siraj-ud-Dawla. At the end of this battle, Siraj-ud-Dawla got defeated and he was replaced with Mir Jafar. Mir Jafar was more or like a puppet for the British government. But later on, Mir Jafar doesn't go along with the British officials. So he got replaced by he got replaced with his son-in-law Mir Qasim. Now Mir Qasim was the Nawab of Bengal. So there was a battle between the Mir Qasim and the British officials. In that battle, Mir Qasim was defeated and ran away to the Awadh. In that place, he got the support from the Nawab of Awadh, Shuja-ud-Dawla, and from the Mughal ruler Shah Alam II. Now the Battle of Buxa begins. Battle of Buxa took place in 1764. It was a battle between a British official, Hector Munro, who was strongly supported, he was strongly in backup with Robert Clive, versus the combined forces of Nawab of Bengal, Mir Qasim, Nawab of Awadh or Oudh, Shuja-ud-Dawla, and the Mughal ruler Shah Alam II. In the end, the combined forces got defeated with the British forces and the Treaty of Allahabad was signed. During the end of the war, Mir Qasim was ran away from the field and Shuja-ud-Dawla Shah Alam got surrendered to the British officials. In the Treaty of Allahabad, British officials got the Diwani rights of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. Diwani rights is a right over the revenue and the civil justice. And from this point, they began to have a control over the territorial area of India. So far, the company acted as a traders, and from now on, after this battle, they began to rule our country. They began to rule the territory of India, and the company rule gradually begins. The company rule was replaced with the Crown rule when the Sepoy Mutiny happened in 1857. And from there on, the British government have the direct control over the Indian administration till 1947. In the second passage, when the independence was given to India, there is a need for the constitution because a country should have a constitution for all its administrative purposes. In the year of 1934 itself, a communist leader M.N. Roy suggested to create a Constituent Assembly to make a constitution, and on his suggestion, the Constituent Assembly was formed for this purpose in 1946, and in the year of 1946, November 26, the Constitution was adopted, and in the year of 1950, January 26, the Constitution gradually came into force. In this chapter, we will see the company rule and then the Crown rule and how the independence was granted and the after independence, how the portfolios were arranged. Now let's see the company rule. 1773 to 1858 is a period of company rule. The first act that was passed was Regulating Act of 1773. This act is of very constitutional importance. It has three important points to be noted. First thing, from this act, the British government take the control and regulate the company's affairs in India. Second, it recognized for the first time in India, it recognized the political and administrative functions. And third one, it made the foundations for the central administrations of India. What are the features of the act? The main feature of the act was the Governor of Bengal hereafter is going to be named as a Governor General of Bengal, and he also created a executive council with 4 members to assist the Governor General of Bengal. And the first Governor General was Lord Warren Hastings. After they created a post like Governor General of Bengal, automatically the 2 independent presidencies named Bombay and Madras came under its control. They also created a Supreme Court at Calcutta in the year of 1774, and the composition of the Supreme Court is 1 Chief Justice and 3 other judges. You can easily understand here that they had got the Diwani rights of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. What is a Diwani right? It's a right over the revenue and civil justice. So, Because of that right, they created the Supreme Court in Calcutta in the year of 1774. They also prohibited the company officials from getting any gifts or bribes from the natives to maintain the order in the officials. They also created a governing body named Court of Directors, which reports about the revenue, civil and military affairs in the India. So from these features, it is well known that the British government strengthened its control over the company in India. Later, in the year of 1781, an amending act or an act of settlement was passed by the British Parliament to rectify the defects which was in the Regulating Act of 1773. And after that, the Pitt's India Act of 1784 was passed. What are the features of the Pitt's India Act? In this act, it has separated the functions of the company as commercial and political functions, and they made the Court of Directors to manage the commercial affairs. Before that, in the Regulating Act, the Court of Directors were used to report on the military affairs, revenue and all. From this act, the Court of Directors was set to manage the commercial affairs, and then they created a new body named Board of Control to manage the political affairs. So they created two governing bodies in Pitt's India Act. The Board of Control duty was to look after all the British possession in India. So in this act, it is clearly said that for the first time the company's territories in India were called as the British possessions. So here the British government is taking over the territory of the India. And second, the British government took the supreme control over the company. After the Pitt's India Act, they made Charter Acts of 1833, 1853. Gradually, the British government is showing their colonist ambitions. In the Charter Act of 1833, they made the Governor General of Bengal as a Governor General of India, which shows how badly the British wants to introduce the centralizations in India. So the Governor General of Bengal was made as a Governor General of India, entire control on the India, and he was vested with all the political functions like civil power, military power, everything. And the first such Governor General of India was Lord William Bentinck. When the government created a centralized position, then the Governor of Bombay and Madras are deprived of their legislative powers automatically. The Governor General of India has all the legislative powers, all exclusive legislative powers. The laws made by the British government after this were called as an acts, which is so far called as a regulations. The word act has more power when compared to the word regulations. Now, the East India Company is a purely an administrative body. It is no longer a commercial body. In this charter, they also attempted to introduce an open competition for the Indians to be placed as a civil servants. But then it is not made because the Court of Directors gave their opposition to that. Next is the Charter Act of 1853. This was the last Charter Act which was formed by the British Parliament, and it is of very much constitutional importance. What are the features of this Act? It is for the first time that it separated the legislative from the executive, and also it provides 6 members for the Legislative Council, which automatically formed as a Indian Legislative Council, and this begins to act like a mini parliament like the one which was in the British land. And in this act, the All India Civil Service examinations was also open to the Indians. So based on this, Macaulay Committee was also been made in 1854. At this point, it is more or like a state that the company rule may be terminated at any point of time because the British Crown almost taken over the control of the India. And in this act, for the first time, they included the local representations in the Legislative Council. So out of the 6 members of Legislative Council, 4 members were selected by the local governments of Madras, Bombay, Bengal and Agra. And by this Charter Act of 1853, the company rule gradually came into end. And how did that happen? For that we have to know a very big historical event, Revolt of 1857. The revolt of 1857 was important because this revolt was widespread in the country. Almost all the northern parts of India were into the mutiny against the alien rule. Since it is widespread, it is unsuccessful. But it was called as a first organized resistance in the country. It began from the sepoys and it ended with the masses. What may be the reason for the revolt of 1857, a sepoy mutiny or the first war of India's independence? There are many reasons which are as follows. Doctrine of lapse, an unfamous act which was made by the Lord Dalhousie. In the act it says that if any ruler who is not having an heir of their own, then the territory will automatically be captured by the British crown. And with those doctrine of lapse, many rulers got agitated. This is how Rani Lakshmi Bai was against the British. Many states which are once loyal to the British became rivals against them. They also introduced many Western culture into the Indian culture, and they were in the mindset of spreading the Christianity in the Indian subcontinent. They also began to intrude in the cultural and religious affairs of India. Their laws for the abolition of sati, female infanticide, and legalizing the widow remarriage made people to go against the British rule. They also made heavy taxes. Their land settlement taxes aggravated the farmers. They ruined Indian traditional industries due to the machine-made British goods. The military reason would be, in the army, 87% of the sipais were Indians. So they were treated inferior to the British people and they were also paid less. Lord Canning made an act, General Service Enlistment Act, which says that the Indian soldiers should be ready to serve anywhere in the India, even the overseas of the India. So this is against the beliefs of the Indian people and culture. Against all these, the immediate cause was the introduction of Enfield rifles with greased cartridges. It is said to the soldiers, said to the sipais, that the cartridges should be removed by biting it from the rifles. There is a rumor that these cartridges were made of the fat of cows and pigs, which is against the religious sentiments of Hindus and Muslims. From there, the Great Revolt, the mutiny started, and Mangal Pandey in Barakpur was the first one to begin the revolt. He go against using the greased cartridges. The revolt of 1857 lasted for more than a year and then it was suppressed and peace was proclaimed by Lord Canning. And that's how he became the Viceroy of India in the Crown Rule. We will see the Crown Rule in the next video.